Welcome to the Bass, Miami Beach's contemporary art museum, where the beach meets contemporary art. Join us as we explore the Bass's permanent collection by international artists who use their art to draw attention to some of the environmental challenges of today. The Bass Museum of Art opened in 1964 in what was formerly the Miami Beach Public Library and Art Center. The 1930s Art Deco building was designed by Russell Pancoast, grandson of Miami Beach pioneer John Collins. The building itself already had a rich history on Miami Beach as the first public exhibition space for art in South Florida. As you walk into the Bass, take in this work. Eternity Now by Swiss artist Sylvie Fleury, a very prominent work in many contexts, particularly within a city that is facing the realities of preserving itself. This work warns us that we must act now to preserve eternity.
The way I work with my neons, as for other text work, is by using ready-mades. I don't create anything, I don't invent, I take words that I see that are around and I bring them into a different context. I like to think of them as some kind of mantras, things that will, stick with you in your head and that you will at some point spring new meanings. What I like about the text that I chose is that, to me, it deeply contradicts itself because, of course, eternity being eternal and now being now.
In context of Miami Beach and the realities of climate change, Swiss artist Sylvie Fleury explores ephemerality in Eternity Now from 2015. The site-specific neon is installed on the Art Deco facade of the Bass, facing Collins Park and the ocean.
The original structure of the museum is made out of keystone, a type of limestone here in Miami. The Miami limestone, originally called Miami oolite, is a geological formation of limestone found in southeastern Florida. Look closely and you can see fossils of corals, mollusks, and algae. In 2001, the original museum building was renovated and a new wing designed by renowned architect Arata Isozaki was added to house galleries, offices, and a museum shop. By 2017, the Bass concluded a comprehensive transformation and reopened to the public on October 29, 2017. Working with architects Arata Isozaki and David Gold, the renovation expanded the internal structure to create an almost 50% increase in programmable space, including 4 new galleries, a museum store and cafe, and a designated education facility to better serve expanded programs and increase attendance. As you enter this historic building, locate and scan the green QR codes throughout the galleries to explore how artists address important environmental themes like climate change and sea level rise and more. Allow me to introduce you to Sylvia Coubignac, Executive Director and Chief Curator here at the Bass.
Hello, and welcome to the Entry Points Tour focused on climates. At the Bass, we continue to create connections between international contemporary art and the museum's diverse audiences. The Bass shares the power of contemporary art through experiences that excite, challenge, and educate. The exhibition program encompasses a wide range of media and artistic points of view that bring new thoughts to the diverse cultural context of Miami Beach. Artists in the collection do not attempt to solve climate issues or posit scientific answers, but rather bring questions and point to the realities of their times, stirring up conversations. As you follow along, you'll learn about the artist's intentions, ideas, and thoughts on the current environmental effects we're experiencing in Miami Beach and elsewhere around the globe.
With warm waters in the Atlantic, weather in South Florida can be unpredictable. During the months of June through November, we often see a number of tropical disturbances and intense storms hitting our shores.
Many artists in the Basque collection utilize materials concerned with elements of nature, what we can control and what we can't. Hei-Yu Yang references the global phenomenon of hurricanes and cyclones in her work Coordinates of Speculative Solidarity, which originally premiered in her 2019 exhibition In the Cone of Uncertainty. Let's listen to local meteorologist John Morales discuss Yang's work in relation to what we're seeing today.
Your work to me conveys urgency because particularly the wallpaper as you go up, when you look at it, so the hurricane's coming basically up the stairs, and then there comes a point where you can see the ripples in the water over the landscape of South Florida. And of course, what that denotes to me is storm surge, but it also reminds me of our very real threat of sea level rise and how sea level rise is going to make storm surges deeper and go further inland than ever before. So the tie-in between, the climate crisis, talking about crises, and what's coming to South Florida is very real when you look at that piece upstairs. I think that's what comes to mind, that urgency of worsening consequences of hurricanes enhanced by sea level rise and global warming. And there's definitely impacts that we're feeling locally here in Miami having to do with what goes on as far as the North Pole. We can slow it down if we mitigate and we find a way to slow the accelerating temperatures on the planet, okay?
And that requires a kind of very holistic thinking in solidarity, no?
Absolutely.
In Adrián Villarrojas' from the series The Theater of Disappearance 13, objects are embedded into a commercial freezer with a mixture of materials such as fossils, fruits, prostheses, and other objects which are intended to decompose at different speeds over time. Combining organic and inorganic materials across geographical locations and time periods, the work appears to both embody and halt the passing of time.
From gasoline prices to changes in the environment, this space reflects challenges we face today and may face tomorrow. Let's hear from artist duo Jennifer Alora and Guillermo Calzadilla, who produced two works in this space, Graft and Petrified Petrol Pump.
The colonial project was simply about extracting resources and bringing slavery and slave labor to create new forms of economic trade like sugarcane and others. So Graft specifically was for us a way to think about all those complex histories. And we chose a tree that was, and how it historically has been, an example of this idea of extraction. Like this was a kind of resource. This is the reason why the Caribbean was first exploited in the way that it was. As for one of the themes, again, that we have been interested in, really interested in, is this idea of deep time, a kind of a scale of time that goes beyond the human lifespan. We made a lot of work that kind of dealt with these ideas, among which was the petrified petrol pump. And then this piece is definitely part of that thinking that we were going through at that moment.
This space references the ways in which nature memorializes certain activity and how human construction and subsequent destruction can be fossilized in perverse ways within our ecosystem. Parts of each of these works remain both recognizable yet also blurred. In Graft, we see 17,500 artificial plastic flowers that do not include the tree from which they came. Some are brown and bruised by oxidation, while others appear freshly fallen. In Petrified Petrol Pump, we see the silhouette of the gas pump and the wayward hose, but the volcanic pyroclastic material has created a thick outer shell for the pump, eliminating its original function.
Creating a small ecosystem inside the museum, Mika Rottenberg's AC Trio also addresses climate control. Let's listen in and see how her work uses sound and matter to relate to South Florida's climate.
I like the idea of creating this spectacle from the tiniest thing and I like to think about transformation of matters, how things move from solid to gas to liquid. For me, it's like so spectacular to just see the water just evaporate with this little cloud of steam coming. And yeah, I've been obsessed about climate control, especially in Miami. It feels like it's like freezing here, and then you go outside and it's so hot, and it's like moving from hot to cold. So it seemed especially appropriate to work with these here.
Lara Favoreto's work, Gummo, helps address more serious matters such as decay, consumption, and loss, bringing certain topics into focus to start a dialogue about bigger issues.
Favoreto embraces the idea of constant change, creating works of art and situations that are in flux. Using elements like obsolete technologies to subtly refer to the passing of time, Favoreto incorporates found materials that are repurposed into her work. Favoreto's work highlights her interest in exploring the survival of certain objects over others, while contemplating their legitimacy in relation to the forgotten and exposing their inevitable destiny of corrosion, erosion, and breakage.
We are in this together, a phrase we've heard many times in the past few years. But what did artist Tavares Strackett intend when he created this piece back in 2018? We cannot have climate and economic health without creating policies supported by our community and government officials. Artists in the collection have not solved these environmental issues through their art, but they've helped us continue and start these important conversations.
In light of the socially distant world created by the COVID-19 pandemic, Art Outside takes the form of a curated journey, expanding beyond Collins Park to multiple sites throughout the city. As one of the central figures in conceptual art in the 1960s, Lawrence Weiner's practice operates beyond the constraints of traditional presentation by taking the form of words and text.
Miami Beach is a city that's built on sand and water, very much like what artist Lawrence Weiner's conceptual artwork behind me describes. As we continue to grapple with sea level rise in one of the cities that will be most affected by climate change, it is imperative that we work together to educate and advocate for resources to mitigate the effects. Weiner's artwork hears Earth's call and encourages us to take action in reducing plastic waste and conserving our beaches. Artists whose practices combine science with creativity are particularly relevant here and help provide an entry point for these topics. We'll continue to have conversations with artists to rise above these issues and work together.
Utilizing numerous species of flora, fauna, and mineral, performers mimicking native birds, and seeding that the artist constructed using locally sourced materials, Agua Dulce forms a plant environment in front of the bass, encompassing nearly 14,000 square feet.
Collaboration, adaptability, and a focus on the local are core tenets of Abraham Cruz Villegas' practice that emerged in the exhibition Agua Dulce out of necessity and by design. Through research with local experts on native flora, Cruz Villegas selected around 25 different species to create this installation of more than 1,000 plants. Many of the included species, like the coastal plain willow, have medicinal properties and are regularly used by the Seminoles, introducing notions of care and restoration to the installation. Through the reclaimed landscape of native species, visitors can learn from and question their environment.
The tradition of stacking stones atop one another has existed across cultures for thousands of years. Mediating between geological formations and abstract compositions, Hugo Rondinone's Miami Mountain traveled across the country to Miami Beach.
Nature is a very important ingredient in my work because it has an universal appeal. All my public sculpture groups are in their appearance very simple, so people, the public, has an easy access.
Hugo Rondinone's Miami Mountain functions as an intervention to Miami's flat landscape and was constructed to resist hurricane-speed winds. hearing Earth's call to Miami and responding with this bright monument. We hope you enjoyed the BAS's Entry Points Climate Self-Guided Experience. You can access these videos anytime as a playlist on the museum's YouTube channel. Thank you for supporting the BAS. We look forward to seeing you again soon.